Good afternoon. On behalf of the 3CMA Board of Directors and our Planning Committee, I'd like to welcome you to Minneapolis and to our great conference. I hope you enjoyed the opening session as much as I did. I'm particularly excited today to introduce our speakers because I just met Scott, but my maiden name is Wilkinson. My name is Jennifer Benarant now. I'm with the City of Edina, but when I first joined the City of Edina staff, my name was Jennifer Wilkinson. And I'm also lucky because I get to introduce two men who hail from Edina, where I work each day. So first, let me tell you just a little bit about Scott. Scott joined the City of Round Rock, Texas, and the Round Rock Arts as Executive Director for the Arts and Culture. Is it a commission? Okay, just the City of Round Rock. There's nothing wrong with just the City of Round Rock. Right. He joined in October 2012 after his tenured stay for 7 years with the Richardson Symphony Orchestra in Richardson, Texas. Scott tripled the size of their individual and corporate giving there, and the symphony was awarded the largest foundation grant in its 50-year history by the Texas Instruments and Meadows Foundation. Scott graduated from Angelo State University in San Angelo, Texas, with a Master of Arts in Theater and Arts Management, and is an accomplished technical, stage, and musical theater director. His years as an executive and development finance director in the arts sector, with his deep appreciation for the arts, implementing ideas to maturity, and knowing how to raise funds and manage budgets, has primed him to work now as Round Rock's Arts and Culture Director. To his right is Mr. Arnold Bigby. Arnie graduated here from the University of Minnesota and began his, he began his career as a high school teacher and then moved into human resources at Norwest, Honeywell, and Mayo Clinic. He spent the final 22 years of his career in higher education administration at the Mayo Clinic College of Medicine. He is a very active volunteer in our community of Edina, Minnesota. He's involved in a number of government, business, and nonprofit organizations, and he's been doing so since 1965. He currently works for Legal Shield as well. He brings with him a young man, Gabe Adderhold. He graduated from Edina High School in 2012 and is currently a junior at the University of Minnesota studying political science. Gabe was a youth member of our Human Rights and Relations Commission in Edina before he graduated. So please join me in welcoming our three speakers today. And what we'll do here is Scott will make a presentation on what's going on in Round Rock, followed by Arnie and Gabe's presentation on what's happening in Edina. We'll have that go on for about an hour. We'll have 15 minutes for questions that you may have, and then we will break. You should have about 15 minutes before you need to get to your last session of the day. So again, please join me in welcoming them.
Oh, good afternoon. A little louder. Oh, there. Good afternoon. I am Scott Wilkinson, and I work with one of the greatest places on earth, the City of Round Rock, and I get to be the arts director, and we have just a wonderful team in Round Rock, and I've got to do some amazing things since I've been there. I have put a little presentation together about celebrating diversity, and to tell you a little bit about who and what is Round Rock. Round Rock, back in the day, in 1500s, the first Europeans kind of settled the area. And it was called the Baghdad-Leander region, and had a large Indian population there. And in the 1700s, the Comanche Indians were there, and they kind of raided all the buffaloes that were in the area. We did have large buffalo herds in the 1800s, and what has now become Williamson County. And you thinking, well, is that really Round Rock, Texas? Well, there, yeah, mostly it is. Round Rock, Texas is north of Austin, Texas. Oh, there. And you can see we're kind of almost in the middle, not particularly. Oh, there. Round Rock was called Brushy Creek because it settled as a settlement then, there. We were along a brushy creek there. It did flood Brushy Creek at the time. We do have a round rock there. The Chisholm Trail used that as a cross for they could put their cattle and horses across safely across the Brushy Creek there. We have a gazebo in the middle of town that had our water well. A lot of hardworking people, mostly cotton fields, and also our lime for our limestone in Round Rock out there. And then we had a lot in the 60s and 70s. We had domino players who played a lot of dominoes in the time in the downtown area out there. We also, in the 1870s, are known for Sam Bass out there. So he was an American train robber out there, and the Texas Rangers did him out in downtown Round Rock, and he's buried in the cemetery in Round Rock out there. So very pleased now that Round Rock is not a little bitty town. It is a great big city. It's 100,000 plus now. It's the 31st largest city in Texas. There we have a big old premium outlet mall by Simons. There, Dell Computers is in Round Rock. There, we have IKEA, which a lot of people visit. We have the Dell Diamond and the Round Rock Express. And also, we're famous for Round Rock donuts there. So if you come to Round Rock, you need a great big old donut. They make a big one there. So. And then we still have our water tower in downtown, and we use this as a piece of art called Imagine, where we have 2,000 people come to a juried art event there and work with our state university, Texas State University there. And this was clouds that was shot during our thunderstorm time a couple years ago. Gary Alvarez did that. So. But I'd like to talk about what is celebrating diversity. You know, I like the graphic that says celebrating our cultures. We all smile in the same language. And I like looking at you, seeing you all smile. I think knowledge is the key to tolerance there, to gain a new perspective on our lives of others around you as well as around the world. And I think cultural celebrations give opportunities to view and maybe understand more about cultures different from our own. Also learning about our cultures, that one can develop respect and open-mindedness of our cultures. Gene Roddenberry said it the best. If a man is to survive, he will have had learned to take a delight in the essential differences between men and between cultures. He will learn that differences in ideas and attitudes are a delight, part of life's exciting variety, and nothing to fear. I like that quote. When I first came to town, I was brought to Round Rock to be the first arts director in our community there, and I got a lot of eye rolling, like I did when my dad was saying I wanted to go into the arts business there. But I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. The first thing I accomplished was bring all our 10 arts groups together and sit down, and we had arts workshops. And we talked about their needs and their differences in the community, how we were doing things there. So we had a long day session, lasted 2 days, and we wrote down all their ideas. And I will talk a little bit more about Yolanda Sanchez. She's there on your right, dancing with our facilitator there. But some of the ideas that came out of this arts workshop was sharing spaces and resources, maybe box office for arts groups, and collaborating between the groups. Diversity was one of the main topics that we talked about, offering diverse offerings. And then planning, create long-range planning for the arts groups that we have. We also talked about publicity and community involvement. How do we get the word out effectively without spending a whole lot of money there? And then some other art ideas that they wanted to accomplish. They wanted to do some art festivals. They wanted to do a jazz orchestra. We did start some of that too. We had jazz students on the plaza this summer, and also doing some arts awards for our arts groups in town. So we sat down with the Round Rock Ballet Florico, and also we collaborated with Univision, the Williamson County Hispanic Committee, the Williamson Museum, Unimos Austin, and the Round Rock Arts. And they're our arts council in town. And we sat down with the Round Rock Ballet Florico because they are a staple in our community. They've been around since 1988, and they're dedicated to promoting authentic Florico dancing. And Yolanda Sanchez was the driver behind this bus. She literally drove school buses until she retired a year ago. But she's been in the education business for 20 years and has been an instrumental influence on our community and what's happening. She founded the organization to offer everyone an opportunity what she wasn't provided when she was growing up in Round Rock. So she strongly believed in what she does, and she's able to provide many dancers an opportunity to give back to their community through expression in their dance. And you talk to their dancers, you even talk to the male dancers, they love Round Rock and they love what they do, and they'll tell you all about the different dances. So they came to us and we decided that we would do a festival called Dias de los Muertos. Excuse my pronunciation, but it's Day of the Dead. And we worked with a local artist, Nick Ramos, and he came up with a design that was suitable for Round Rock and what we wanted to accomplish. And I want to tell you what Dias de los Muertos is. You're probably looking at me, Scott, you're crazy out there. But I want to show you a little animation, and it didn't have any words to it. It's all music out there, but I'd like to show you this because it explains what Dia is. So I thought that was a cute little explanation of what Dios was. Well, there we all lose loved ones, and that's kind of remembering them and keeping them in our memories. There. So we had the design, and we wanted a poster that kind of talked about what Dias de los Muertos was, and we had a concept there, and our concept was honoring our past and celebrating our future. Celebrating life, family, community, and the arts. And our theme was Elvis and Frida Kahlo. And I kind of embraced everything that we did in our arts workshop there and what we talked about for those 2 days. So our next problem was, how do we sell Dias de los Muertos to our community there? I do have to say, real short, that I was called Satan at one point in time during this, and I'll tell you why in a minute there. But we had an opportunity. Events in Round Rock, if we closed off any part of our downtown area, the businesses and restaurants in the area thought they would lose business there. So thinking fast on our feet, how can we include them and get them more engaged with that was the idea of the coaster. We brought them 3,000 coasters there. We printed them. We put the dates in the event and the logo, and we distributed them. I do have to say the coaster is nominated for a Savvy Award there, and we're very proud of that there. And this way we hope that Dias de los Muertos event would embrace the business owners and promote to our patrons. And our intended goals was to give the bar and restaurant owners a feel part of the event, except without feeling excluded. And also give the waiters and waitresses a way to communicate to the people that were in their restaurants. They would talk about that. We visited with all the waiters and waitresses and said, do you know about Dias? And we told them a little bit about the event. So it was a good way to create awareness of both what the event was and what we were going to do downtown. And Chewy's restaurant there really embraced that idea, and they had distributed it at their restaurant, which wasn't in downtown, but we're glad that they stretched out to that. I want to show a little bit of the pictures of what we did with our own Dias de los Muertos. We had a procession from one plaza to another, and we had these great big tall puppets there that led the way. There, we had Frida Kahlo there. We did an altar making contest, and that's where I was called the Satan there, because I was producing altars there. And you see some of the vibrant costumes and the painted faces in the procession. We had local musicians, and we had Elvis there. Here's some of the beautiful costumes made by Ballet Florico. And then we had large crowds at the event. This was on our plaza. I do have to say we was only anticipating about 500 people showing. We had a variety of musicians, and here's some of the families that came with painted faces. We had some interactive lighting there. We put the logos on the wall, and then if you changed in front of the logo, it changed to our sponsors for the event. And that was done by a local person. Here's some of our people at our restaurants enjoying the evening. And then we went from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. that night, and I think they could have partied well into the morning there, but So some of our outcomes with this event and our coaster, it was on Saturday, November the 2nd, 2013. It was our first event. It was an overwhelming success. We have over 2,000 people that attended that event, and it just filled up our downtown square and our streets, and it was just an amazing event. Area business owners were very pleased with the attended traffic. Two of the business owners say they want coasters for every event that we do now in our downtown area. And many of the attendees said they came because they saw the coaster idea. The budget cost for the coaster is around $643 there, and the entire event cost about $4,300. But it was well worth in bringing an arts group from one level and getting them to the next level, and also looking and celebrating diversity in our community. And this is just one of the things that we're looking at in Round Rock, so we're very pleased. So I do have to thank the City of Round Rock and Will Hampton, our communications director there. Kristen Brown, she is my kind of right-hand person. We work together. She's a special events coordinator. And, of course, Yolanda Sanchez for the Round Rock Ballet Florico and the Round Rock Arts there. So thank you.
We're going to change the format just a little bit here. I'm Arnie Bigby, and it's really a pleasure to be here with you today. And one of the positions I had during my working career, I was administrative director of an Office of Continuing Medical Education. This is the Mayo Clinic College of Medicine. So we did about 100 meetings a year, and our meeting planners were just hopping all the time. And we called that the business of green tablecloths and sweaty water pitchers. And it's good, and you know, this is the kind of an event that gets people together, gets you talking about what you do. You learn a few things. You want to go back with those pearls of wisdom that you can use to either inspire or encourage, and maybe take on some new things that you want to do. One of the things that I like about what we can do, and oftentimes with a very limited budget, is create visibility. So I brought a little pop-up banner here, because a lot of times we'll go someplace and want to have that width so people know who we are and what we're all about. Some people will come up and they'll say, why would Edina, Minnesota, need a Human Rights and Relations Commission? And that's just a good conversation starter for us. I joined the Human Rights Commission almost 6 years ago. And in 2009, one of the things that I knew that I wanted to be able to have for our community was that everybody is accepted and respected and has full participation. And if that's not the way our community is, then we're missing something. So that's really the goal that I see. And I'm fortunate to be at that time in my life where I'm retired from that day job. I do have some business activities I stay engaged with, but I've got time to volunteer and do what it is I want to do to have things happen. So in celebrating diversity, I think we've got the visibility. It's really important to engage a community, and you do that in a lot of different ways. I really like the arts. My wife happens to be the chair of the Public Art Committee for the City of Edina, and so it's a really neat way where sometimes the intertwining of the various things that cities are doing can have a big impact on the members in the community. Staying visible is really important in human rights. And what we have done in our commission, we like to make resolutions. So we'll do resolutions and send them to the city council, support this, support that. We've had so many of our resolutions be approved unanimously by the city council, which is really delightful for us. And then trying new initiatives is also really important. And sometimes you're going to feel you're out on the skinny branches. But, you know, sometimes if you're not having people be a little upset with you, you may not be trying to do enough or moving in the right direction. What I'd like to do, you've all got a handout now, and I want to take you to that handout. I just wanted to keep this very simple, but if you go to the page 2, in the bottom right of page 2, there's some information there that I think is pretty important. When Edina was nothing more than a village built really around a mill, a grist mill on Minnehaha Creek. And the falls is still just about a block from City Hall, where that little falls is, where the old mill used to be. And so the community came together to organize, and some of the families that were part of that first community and were leaders in that first community were black families. And that's pretty unique, and I think a lot of people in Edina haven't known that until our communications office put together this great sheet for us. And actually, that's part of what's on about a 10-foot by 10-foot canvas banner that we use for our Quasquicentennial celebration to just get that in front of a lot of people. And over time, into the later part of the 1800s and early 1900s, that format continues, the community thrives. Then in the early 1920s, the diversity of the community wanes. And over the next several decades, we see a pattern develop where not only are there not diverse members of the community there, they're almost all white, but people of color and Jews were explicitly not welcome. And that's not a pretty part of our history, but it's there. And that restriction was actually built into some of the real estate covenants. So we've wanted to highlight that. We wanted to bring that out and let the community know that that's what was so. And that's not what our community is about today. The time then brings us up to the 1950s and 60s, and government legislation makes it possible for people to really live anywhere. Not that it's going to be easy in some cases, and Edina then is experiencing that same thing. And in 1972, 42 years ago, a Better Chance Foundation starts a chapter in Edina for high school students. And if you're not familiar with a Better Chance, it's a great organization, operates around the country, and does great work with high school students. If we look at our commission today, I want to go back to page 4. If you look at that, what you'll see is that we report to the City Council. We're just advisory in nature. We have 9 members who are appointed by the City Council, and the City Council interviews all the people who apply for that appointment to our commission, as well as all of the other commissions. And Jennifer, I don't know how many commissions we have. Is it 8 or 9? It's a big group, and the City Council does a great job. And not only do they interview the members who want to be voting members of that commission, but they also interview all of the student applicants. On our commission, we have 2 student members every year. They are non-voting, but they work right alongside of us and generate a lot of ideas and information. And what I want to do, I want to interrupt at this point in my comments. I want to introduce Gabe Ederhold. Gabe was a student member of our commission 2012, thereabouts, 11, 12, something like that. And our student members are a member for a school year. And Gabe's just going to give you a short snippet of what his experience was like, what it's meant to him.
Great. Oh. Well, thank you, Arnie, for inviting me and having me here to speak today. I was a student member of the Edina Human Rights Commission from mid-2012 through mid-2013. And I kind of wanted to emphasize one thing that Arnie said about his goal of making the community feel included. And I think that is one of the goals of this commission, is not only to be able to make everyone feel included through their advice to the City Council, but by having student members be part of the commission. I attended Edina High School, which had about 1,500 students, and that's kind of a perspective that a working body of mainly adults might not get to see inside. And I think that was a really helpful perspective to be able to bring to the commission from what's happening in the schools. So a few things that I was able to work on with the commission was primarily about bullying in the school system, because that was an issue, a human rights issue that might not be able to be fully developed with the current membership. And so we were able to not vote or push forward the recommendations that went to the city council, but we were able to engage in the full discussion. And that was my favorite aspect of working on the commission, to talk about, well, what areas do we as students see bullying continuing to happen at Edina High School? What would be helpful to raise awareness about these issues with community members? And although I did not investigate too much on this issue, I was there when the commission did vote to urge the city council to come out against some of the, was it the conflict minerals, and that was an interesting perspective to see. And I guess I would just say that the student membership of our commissions, and not just the Human Rights Commission, but all the commissions, is an extremely powerful tool for communities, because it allows people like myself that are interested in public policy and interactions with the community to learn a lot about how actual government and local politics and organization work. But it also gives us the opportunity to relay that feedback to the commission. So, thanks.
Gabe, you're just starting, sophomore year? Junior year at University of Minnesota, which is really great. Excuse me. Need a drink of water. And Gabe brings a real passion to what he does. And I wanted him here to be able to share what his perspectives are, because if you don't have student members as a part of your commissions, or at least getting young people involved, you're really missing something. Their perspective is great, and they have been people to initiate some of the resolutions that we've considered, and our city council has been really delighted at that outcome. The city is now looking at some ways in which we can really strengthen that program, and have students that are serving on our commissions get a lot more out of that in terms of building for their own futures. Gabe, you didn't mention you've done an internship with one of our state senators, and were you also spending some time in Washington, D.C. with someone? No? Okay, not yet. But he's been very active politically, and when he talks about public policy, he's really engaged and on top of that. The other infrastructure that we have to support us, the city council very enthused. Jennifer Benarat, communications. If we have an issue, we need something, the banner, her staff is there to do it, very prompt, and I'm just delighted at the response, Jennifer, especially for this. You don't have to be embarrassed, it's really great. We have a very modest budget. We have 9 commissioners, each serving a 3-year term. They're staggered. Then we have 2 student members, and the student members are new each year. So what I want to do now is just talk about what we're doing at the present time, and the present time being really for the last 4 years. I would add, we use for the city, and I'm not sure how long this process has been in place, but the city really has a structure for work plans. And so all of our commissions develop work plans. And Jennifer, I don't know if the departments do the same thing, so it's a very standard procedure. And it just helps us know what it is we want to do, when we want to do it, what resources we need, and then share that with the city council and with other commissions, which is a good thing for us. The one a person on, or item on that front page of the timeline I was showing you that I didn't talk about yet, and I want to, is the Tom Oy. Tom Oy was an early resident of our community, And he was, along with his family, put out of their homes in the early part of World War II on the West Coast and put in internment camps. And that happened a lot for the Japanese residents in the West Coast. Tom, that was younger, was offered an opportunity to enlist in one of the all Japanese units within the U.S. Armed Services, and he did that. He later relocated to Edina and was a huge proponent of human rights and was one of the persons who helped found the Edina Human Rights and Relations Commission. He served in that commission for 30 years. We have an award, it's called the Tom Moy Award, and so we make that award of a person who lives or works in our community each year. And it's another opportunity for that visibility. And it's a real celebration for us at that time when that happens. But what I want to do now is go to page 5, which just talks about the other things that we're doing. We have some recurring things. I just mentioned the Tom Moy Award. We also are responsible for making sure that the bias ordinance is up to date. If there is any concern about hate bias in an incident that happens that comes through our police department, that we're made aware of it, and if our resources are needed, we can assist with that. And then we have an annual 1-hour work session with the City Council to test ideas, see what they're interested in, hear from them, and also let them hear from us about what we think is important. Going to the timeline on the right of that page, in 2010, we developed a domestic partnership ordinance. Today, a lot of people think we don't need it because Minnesota passed a bill that really allows, again, lesbian people same-gender people to marry in the state of Minnesota. And at that time, there was not such a law in the state, and in fact, there was an effort to have marriage, an amendment added to our Constitution, which meant marriage would be between one man and one woman. That amendment to the Constitution was defeated. That was another one of our resolutions that we had for our city to have that highlighted. Gabe had mentioned anti-bullying events, so we've done a few of those in 2011 and 2012. Book reads are pretty popular in Edina, and it's a way of engaging an audience around the library. We did that again in 2013 at the bottom of that column for younger children. We have a lady who writes children's books, very colorful, lots of animations, and there are books available that can talk about bullying for children at that age, preschool age. We also had a resolution on the voter ID amendment. That was something that was on the docket here to be proposed in Minnesota and was defeated. We also started annual days of remembrance. Because of incidents around the globe, and they continue today, we don't want people to forget about the Holocaust, about what happened in Rwanda, other places around the world. So we really have a recurring event every year where that's a topic of remembrance for us. One of the things we're just beginning this fall are community conversations. This is the top of the right side of that column. And we're going to be asking people in our community, in groups of maybe 30 to 40, what makes a welcoming community, and then follow that up with the question, is Edina a welcoming community for you? And we want to do that and listen to the answers we get, and make sure that we're doing everything we can to have people feel comfortable in our community, whether they look like me, the old white guy, or they look like someone else, more like Gabe. We want everyone to feel welcome and accepted in our community. The format for those conversations are based on work done by the Advocates for Human Rights, a Minnesota nonprofit organization. I put their website down there. We're going to be heading into a fall this year with a proposal to the council that we celebrate disability awareness. It's the 30th anniversary next year, 2015, of the ADA, so that looks to be important for us. We've been in the newspaper in the last few days about the City Council's approval of some zoning or planned unit development changes that allow a shelter for homeless youth to be constructed in Edina, and we're just delighted with that. It was very minor community opposition to that. There are other things that happen, and one of the things I'm concerned about in our community are just sidewalks that work, transit that works for people of all income levels. Affordable housing, I think, is going to be an issue. It's obviously was one for our youth. It's going to be an issue continuing for others. And you know, a year ago, I marched with a group of people, including many Native Americans, from their. We have probably one of the largest Native American urban populations in Minneapolis, near Franklin Avenue and Bloomington Avenue. And at the time, I think it was when the Washington professional football team was here last year, there was a march of about 700 people from that place down to the Metrodome. The Metrodome was no longer here. They're now playing at TCF Stadium, and we think there's going to be the same kind of protest against the use of the word Redskins for that team, offensive in our community. And I'm going to complete my comments there, and somebody going to moderate questions and so on. Thank you.
I'll start with the first question, and maybe each of you could answer it. You mentioned being called Satan at one point, and I've observed members of the Human Rights and Relations Commission you know, fielding the more negative side of an issue. Just describe some of your strategies to rising above in those situations.
I sent out an email to all the personnel at the city of Round Rock, and we were to do an altar making contest. We wanted to get the departments kind of involved with the community on this Dias de los Muertos event, and I did get some comments back that I was Satan out there and I shouldn't be worshiping altars out there. And what we did there was saying that we certainly understand where he was coming from and understanding his religious rights out there as a person out there, and no way that we was trying to put that upon him out there. We're just trying to celebrate a culture out there. I sent him the video so he could kind of see what the video was about out there, and just let him explain to us how he felt. I think he wanted more of an outlet, saying that we shouldn't have done that through the city sites. But I think it was important to rise above and say that, you know, Round Rock had a large Hispanic community in Round Rock, and that we need to celebrate just not the cowboy side or the good old boy side, but we also have a large black population out there, and our Hispanics are important too out there. So.
Well, for me, you know, having something get published in Sun Current, the Edina newspaper, and what the commission has done. When I was chair, sometimes the feedback would come to me. I can remember getting a small envelope, handwritten, my name and address handwritten on it, and the note inside was typed. It was one line. It says, "Haven't you got enough to do that you have to worry about those kinds of things?" And it's just, and it was postmarked in St. Paul. So you do get that kind of comment from people, and I think what's been reassuring to me is that I have not had that kind of comment from many people in the city of Edina.
Well, I would add that I remember when I had joined, it was a really intense time with the marriage amendment discussion, and there was anti-bullying legislation being considered for that would include protection of different sexual orientation, and I remember that I did get a message from a community member, indirectly of wondering if there was some sort of, you know, agenda, so to speak, and if certain members' sexual orientation was kind of dictating this, and it was a little bit frustrating and a little hurtful to hear that from a community member. But I think that, as Arnie said earlier, is that you sometimes people will be, a little bit upset with what you're doing. And I think the best way to move forward through that is to hopefully, if you can, engage in a conversation, hear what they have to say, what was it that concerned them, and then let them know what your perspective was and what you're working on to make the community a safe place, really for everyone is the goal.
Other questions? Yes. Okay, the question is, what's the structure of the commission, and how is it comprised?
Good question. We have 9 members, staggered terms. Then when we have a meeting, a commission meeting, there's one of the interns, currently that's Lindy Crawford, who is there, and so she's capturing all of the information. I think they're recorded also, but they do capture salient points. And then we also have, I'm not sure what MJ's position is, but okay, so MJ Lehman is our staff liaison person, and so she's there also. If I need something, if I've got a question and I need some help with something, I'm probably going to start with MJ and have her be a resource. And MJ could direct me to Jennifer, or she could say, well, let's do something here in our office, whatever it is. But they're always at the meetings. They're going to make sure that we have good records of whatever our conversations have been. And if it sounds like we're going to get off on a wrong track, we're going to maybe do something that we either shouldn't be or that isn't part of our role, they're there to help us with that too. Good constructive guidance. People on the commission, they're all volunteers, and on the commission right now we probably have, I'm guessing there are 5 lawyers. And that's not a bad thing. At least one of them is retired, and he's just a great person and knows the details. And so I've served on a lot of boards, and your lawyers are really going to be valuable for you. Once in a while they get one that's maybe a little too chapter and verse, but I think they can really keep you out of trouble and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. We've got, I know over the years that I've been on there, we've had, mothers and homemakers. We've had engineers. We've had a person who's in human resources at the state of Minnesota level. We had a person who was an officer in an IT company. And she now has changed occupations, and she's in human rights or the civil rights department of City of St. Paul. So it's a good cross section of people. I've got an administrative background. I'm not a lawyer, so just have a lot of years of volunteer experience.
Other questions? Back there? The question is, what's the structure of the community conversations for Ernie?
So the community conversations are going to be new for us. We first of all recruit a group of volunteers to be facilitators at those events. So we've got a group of currently about 14 or 15 people who are going to be ready to make sure people are welcomed, make sure that when they gather in, not only in the large group, but then also in small groups, take a flip chart and what makes a welcoming community, And then, is Edina a welcoming community for you? The challenge I think you're pointing to is when we're ready to have one of those events, that let's say it's going to be in the meeting room at the Southdale Library, we want to have 30, 40, 50 people show up. How do we encourage them to come? And that is a challenge for us. So stay tuned. We've got a lot of community connections. The YMCA, I visited with people there. I visited with people in the faith communities. And we've got senior centers. I think there are a lot of places where we can be letting people know we're doing this, and then make sure that we get a good cross-section of people that represent all of the areas of our community. That's who we want to hear from. When I was having a conversation with our city manager about this, he said, "Oh, this sounds like a community activist." And I said, "Well, we don't have to gather that information, but do you want to know the answer to that question? Do you want to know their answers to the questions? Is this a welcoming community for you?" He said, "Yeah, I'd like to know that." So I think that's the meat and potatoes in that.
Jamie. Jamie's question is for Scott, and it is, who did you need to get buy-in from before you were able to do your event, and how did you get that buy-in?
It just came from the arts workshop, literally. That's Yolanda came to me probably the next day, and she said, "I want to sit down with you." And she brought her daughter in, Celicia Sanchez, and she brought several other people, and we kind of had a Red Robin type element in. Then we brought Kristen Brown, who was the special event chairman for the city, because I was mostly on the arts side for the Arts Council at the time. And we all kind of sat together and said, is this a good event for downtown? And would it be something a little bit different than what we're already offering to our citizens? And would it draw? And then we worked there, and we really worked hard with the Williamson County Hispanic Committee. And also we worked with Texas State University, the Round Rock campus. They had an organization there. And we met for 3 or 4 months in talking about what the event would entail. Should we get too complicated into that? You know, how do we just tell people what Dia de los Muertos really is out there, and how to celebrate that? So I think the design kind of embraced that. When we saw the design and then we put it out there on social media, we had an instant feedback out there. We had lots of likes right off the bat, so we knew we were hitting a market. And then Univision did a television commercial for us to sell the event out there. They were doing some in Austin out there, and they knew how to get the word out, and they helped us a lot. So that's how everybody came together to embrace that. And now it's an annual event, and November the 8th of this year, they're ready to go. And on back of the coaster this year, they have an initiative of Shop the Rock. And they'll have the Shop the Rock logo back there also.
Let's come back over here to the back of the room. The question is for Arnie, and it is, do you see any trends in bias complaints?
No, I don't. We've had very few. Excuse me. We've had very few, and it always ends up being a bit controversial if somebody says, here's what happened, and we rely on the police reports to define what it is that happens. You know, they try to do that as objectively as possible. And always it seems there's a lot of he said, she said in that. But we do listen, and we have a network of community that if someone feels that they're the subject of a bias outcry of some type, that we're available even if it's not something that's identified as a bias crime by the police department. We want to listen, we want to share. If they need to be put in touch with their own faith community or another resource person to have some support about that, we'd like to make that happen.
Next question, over here. The question is, who solicits the sponsors?
The city of Round Rock was the main sponsor for the event. We had Univision, which contributed the commercials for that. The Arts Council bought the T-shirts for the event, and they sold them during that. We also had an art exhibit in our art gallery that local artists painted what they thought Dias de los Muertos was there. But yes, the city would like me to go out and find sponsors for different events and help pay for that. Some of the ways that we've done that is look at give back there. What can you do for us for this event to get your name on it there, and collateral materials and all. So it's been easy for me. I was a contract laborer for the city of Round Rock, but I was the executive director for the Arts Council, so I could fund money through the 501c3 on the Arts Council side and let them write checks, and then also give grants and all through the city of Round Rock Arts Department for different things that we do.
Michelle. I'm going to give you the mic, Michelle.
I was just complimenting your philosophy. I was thinking about, we did an event one time and we didn't have any money, and so we went to our arts association, and we actually had a grant program at the city through the Community Redevelopment Agency. So they were able to apply for the grant. So people say, oh, it was still city funded. Not really. It was a grant to the arts agency. So they were a sponsor, doing that for us, and we did it in partnership. So I think that partnership's really cool. My question to you guys is about social media. It seems like anytime you talk about human relations or racism or sexual orientation, you bring out the worst of people in social media, the worst and the best, but there sometimes can be these ongoing fights back and forth about people's strongly held beliefs, whatever beliefs they are. Can you talk to us about how you've used social media? Did those things pop up? Did you decide sometimes not to use social media? Just give us some feedback about social media on this topic.
Really attracted those people with very divergent opinions, and I avoided it because it was like a digital argument, and it never got solved. There was not a place where people would come together to have a dialogue and work to improve the community. It was just where people could, it seemed to me at least, where people could just vent, and that doesn't move things forward in my experience. I don't know if anybody else has comments. Gabe, anything you wanted to?
Well, we spend, Will Hampton, our communications director, we spend a good hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes just talking about social media. We've had some situations where police officers had to shoot a dog there, and how people kind of react to that negatively, and how do we respond to that in a way. We've been trying to push good stories to the police department, what it does through our community, and talking about it in our group one-on-one, and kind of hitting back and forth the good and the bad about the situation. Sometimes there's just not a good way out except to just kind of delete the real negative ones and maybe answer back on some of the more positive type comments out there and look at. Yeah. Right. Right. That was it. Out there. And we had a lot of people come from our community that didn't have makeup on, and we just wanted to see what the event really was out there, and the tradition of it. And I think they saw how beautiful it was and how solemn the procession was from one plaza to another, and that we were kind of celebrating life instead of making fun of it. in a way out there. I kind of brought people together.
I'm going to just add a little bit more to the Edina conversation. Arnie mentioned that before same-sex marriage was legal in the eyes of the law here in Minnesota, Edina was one of the first communities in the state to have a domestic partner registry. And when that registry was formed, there was a lot of conversation happening on both sides of the issue in social media. As city officials, we don't participate in the conversation. Our media policy is very clear on that. We'll answer questions or we will correct misstatements, but we're not actively engaged in the conversation. Our board and commission members are not bound by our staff media contact policy. We urge them to follow it, of course. But you know, some are better than others. And we have had times when we have had situations where our board and commission members have delved into those conversations and very quickly learned that it is best to observe and take in that information as feedback rather than react to it. Other questions here? Question is, what is the ROI on these events and initiatives?
For our event, I think it's 1,000 times over. These people did not know that these organizations existed in our community, and now that we did this event, it brought it to life, and they look forward now to an annual event. Plus, they're coming back to our art gallery. We had those 2,000 people come through the art gallery and see art. And now they're coming back and say, hey, my mother draws, my cousin draws. How do I get a piece of art in the gallery? And we've seen that kind of blossoming now out there. So we have supporters now for the arts that are just not one-sided, but it's a whole community out there, which is thrilling to see out there how they did.
You know, one of the things that I've experienced in other areas of my life, but also in the last 5.5 years I've been on this commission, is that we as a city, through what we've done, have really declared we are advocates for human rights. And what I experience, I can't put it in a return on investment in terms of dollars, but what I can tell you is that other communities look to Edina and say, what's Edina doing? When we were the 4th city in the state to approve the domestic partnership ordinance, within about 3 or 4 months after that, there were 14 or 15 other cities that did the same thing. They put a domestic partnership ordinance in place. And I think if we take a step, that's a positive step, and make that public in our community, it gets to other communities. I mean, our mayor is active, and the Met Council is active, and the Minnesota League of Cities. So we've got a lot of reach, more than sometimes we know, and that word gets out. It gets in the newspaper, and I think it's just beneficial for us, and we just want to keep that moving. I think that's our interest.
Other questions? Yes. Do you need a liberal elected body to make these things happen?
Will Hampton, Communications Director for the city. We have a conservative council. I mean, we're in William. For those of Jennifer, my colleague from Austin, can tell you we are a conservative community politically. But the thing about, we're in Texas, so we have a fairly large Hispanic community as well that's been active, civically active in Round Rock for decades and decades and decades. And so because we made a commitment to the arts by hiring Scott a couple years ago, we also have a commitment to growing our downtown and growing events and activities downtown. We didn't really need to get permission. Someone sort of asked, well, who do you need to get permission from? We were already this was an event that achieved a couple of goals for us. if you know, it worked in conservative Round Rock, I think, in part because it met some of our other goals, and in part because, God, we're good people, you know, and there's nothing crazy about them. There is a little bit of education that has to go on, though, about what is Dia de los Muertos, right? I mean, I'm a gringo. I have no idea what this was before it started, so. Does that answer your question? You can do it in League City. Oh, come on. It's a home of NASA. There's smart people there. Come on.
I think you have to take chances sometimes and listen to your community and what they want to achieve there. We did have a arts strategic plan in place, and the 3 goals were creating, developing, and joining the community. And I preach that everywhere I go. And the council approved that, and they're behind that, and they knew what we were doing.
Back there.
Going along with what her comment was, how do you stand up to those special interest groups that are coming at you for whatever reason? If they, you know, if they have valid reasons, they don't have valid reasons. What is your philosophy of standing up to those different groups as they go forward in trying to demolish your event?
How do you stand up to special interest groups that are lobbying against your event or initiative? Do you want to start, Arnie?
I think it's like a city council meeting. It's a hearing, you know. People have a chance to speak their piece, both sides. And when someone says that affordable housing for homeless youth, I mean, it's just going to attract, you know, those black kids that play basketball late at night, and it'll ruin the neighborhood. I mean, people want to come to my office. There was that kind of one person, that kind of feedback. And it was an implication, and the majority of the feedback was not that. It was very positive. We need to do this. This is part of our responsibility as a community, and it's just, I think, important to have that out in the open. Let people, if the people want to say that, if they want to be responsible for that, let them say it and be public about it, so that everyone knows that's how they feel. And you know, we've just had a majority of the people say that's not who we are. We're sharing, giving, we're inclusive.
What's your mission statement say? That's what I would want to know. I mean, most mission statements are pretty all-encompassing. And you point back to who are we? And maybe the word diversity isn't in your mission statement, but there's probably other sentiments that are. Or it's just like talking out of turn.
That's all right.
I have nothing else to say.
Are there other questions? John Brown.
I got a statement. So we have a domestic partnership. We have a domestic partnership. I'm John Brown, Leon County. We have a domestic partnership registry in Leon County, an ordinance also. And one of the things when we were going through launching it, in a sense, and celebrating that, we found out that we needed to pay attention to all the sensitivities, not just from the commission side, not just from the community side, which obviously is a great focus of ours, but we also need to pay attention to our own team. And that happened in 2 different forms. One, had a gentleman, a team member, and he called out of the blue my phone and said, I like to, myself and my partner, we like to be one of the people, first people to register. Would you mind that? And I said, no, absolutely. So that was interesting that, you know, we needed to listen to the team also. On the other side of that, we had a woman in the place that we were actually doing it, or the post-ceremony where they were going to actually register, and she was a pastor's wife, and she said, you're going to have media in here, I can't be seen on camera. I can't be a part of this, in a sense. And we needed to be sensitive to that also, so we worked with the media to, you know, see where they could be and where they couldn't be, the first 3 booths right here and things of that nature, and obviously we worked with that department's team to make sure that she could be out of the picture and things of that nature. But it's very important for us to listen to our internal team also, and focus on their sensitivities as well as the community and the elected officials.
Thank you for sharing, John. Any other questions or comments? Anyone? Well, I'd like to thank Gabe for taking time out of his class schedule today. It's the first week of school at the U, so we appreciate you coming over. Arnie, thank you for sharing your experiences on the Human Rights Commission. And Scott, thanks for sharing your fabulous and fun event. I want to come.
And under two of your chairs, I have a card there for some T-shirts there. So look under, see if there's a card under there, and you can come get your T-shirt.
Thanks again. We do have a short break with the next session starting at 3:45.